Alrighty, so before I take the train down to PayPal Park to watch the annual Blues Not Derby, where both of my team are playing against each other down at PayPal Park, I want to first quickly do the review of the first two matinee games to kick off match week number 3. And if you would have told me that all the goals would be scored in this game compared to this one where no goals were being found, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's just kind of the nature of MLS. Apparently, and this is why I've always said that, even though I'm not a betting man, if I was a betting man, I would still not bet on games in MLS because yeah, there's just so much unpredictability that could happen when it comes to the goal scoring. Where if you would have thought that a game would have featured a lot of goals and it didn't feature anything, and if you thought a game was going to be relatively tight, it's going to be low scoring, yeah, it kind of turned into a bit of a goal fest. But first, let's talk about the game that didn't feature any goal, and that is the Columbus Crew versus the Houston Dynamo. And one thing I want to say is that I feel like in the beginning of this season, I'm seeing more teams when it comes to going on the road decide to just simply park the bus, not even think about going on the attacking end, and basically salvage themselves a point. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is kind of a trend that we're going to be seeing for the rest of the season, but it feels like we saw it again here where the Houston Dynamo, they had no interest in terms of attacking in this one. They had an interest in terms of just getting out a point, getting a nil-nil draw against Columbus. And in previous year, this would have been impossible to do. I mean, if you would have said to me in previous year, with a Wilfred Nancy team end up in a nil-nil draw at home, that's kind of unthinkable because Columbus have usually always at least score a goal or two at home, and more times than not, games doesn't end nil-nil when it's at lower dog home field. But unfortunately, as we know about Columbus, they lost a lot of pieces this off season, and we're definitely starting to see it now with the pieces that they lost in the off season and haven't really quite replaced them. That it is starting to hurt this team, especially on the attacking end. Now, in the first half, Columbus was on the front foot as they were looking for the opener. Rossi had a free kick that was denied by Tarbell. The first shot for Houston saw Bassi puts it wide from long range, or actually from close range, that is. That would actually be the first of only free shot that the Dynamo would have in the entire game, as the shots were one apiece early in this one. Herrera had a shot that was deflected and goes behind for a corner, and then Farsi puts it into the North Decker in the 19 minutes as Columbus continued to press for the opening goal. The possession was heavily in favor of Columbus, and this was an interesting game knowing that both of these teams love to have possession. I mean, somebody's going to have to have the possession and somebody is going to have to not have the possession, and it seems like the Crew is going to be the team to have the possession, and that kind of made the Dynamo a little bit uncomfortable with the way that Ben Olsen team is a team that like to have possession, and when they don't have the possession, I thought it would kind of unbalance them. And it turns out it didn't really quite work that way, in a way where they actually did really well defensively, but they just couldn't get anything going for it on the attacking end. Ladero would hit one right to Schulte. That would be the second of only three shots the Dynamo has, and the only shot on goal that the Dynamo would have had all game long. But I thought they did start to get into this game after a bit of a slow start, though as I said, Tarbell would then deny Farsi in the near post. This is by far the best game that Andrew Tarbell has, but it still doesn't discount the fact that I don't think he's anywhere near a starting caliber goalkeeper, and I'm really surprised the Dynamo are not thinking about that as a big need heading into the remaining part of the transfer window. Especially when you look at a guy called Tim Melia is still available out there in the free agency market. I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna have to get him, even though I know some people say Melia is kind of right near the end of his career. But I'm pretty sure he's a better option starting in goal for the Dynamo than it is with Andrew Tarbell. Just saying. But we do head to halftime, scoreless between both of these teams, and also no, this is not because of the fact I'm a Tarbell hater mainly because I'm a Quakes fan. But I'm just saying the fact because I as a Quakes fan I've seen Tarbell starting game in and game out how poor he is, and that he's just not an MLS caliber goalkeeper in my book, and I just simply don't rated him. But we do head to halftime, scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, there was a shout for a handball not given to the Crew. This would actually turns out to foreshadow a bit of a controversial call that happened late in the second half. Arston would puts it wide from close before Tarbell denied Nagby from close as the Crew once again pushed to try to get the opening goal. Rossi would puts one into the stands as Chambos would then puts it wide from long range in the 59th minute. And really that shot kind of sums up the Crew day so far. There was a lot of these low percentage shot, which I think that was kind of by design for the Dynamo, just kind of limit those long range effort. And Columbus does have the ability at times to strike it from there, but more times than not, when you limit your opposition to low percentage shot, it's actually pretty good. And that the crew were really doing that much well with these long range effort. Most of them pretty much putting it wide and not really showing the finishing that they need to get this opening goal. And I even wrote the Dynamo seems like they're playing for a 0-0 draw, and I think it was kind of evident even in the beginning of this game where again they're being compact, they're not allowing Columbus with a lot of space to work with. They basically decided to let Columbus work on the flank area, which is something that they can of course do, but at the same time it's not one of the preferred way that Wilfred Nazi's side want to operate on the attacking end. There was then a shout for a handball. Oh, this was the controversial call. So in the 72nd minute, it was a shout for a handball for Columbus as they feel like Steris handballed it. Now they only show one replay of this. At least I look at it on Apple TV. I think that's a handball. I think that should have been looked by VAR and probably should have been a penalty for the crew because it definitely looked like when that ball hit, Steris' hand was in an outstretched position, in an unnatural position. And the fact that they didn't even go to VAR in that play, and again, I can understand why crew fans are going to be absolutely fuming about this, and they have every right to do so because they should have gone to VAR in this, and it's just another example of the inconsistency that is of the calls in this league. It's been kind of a thing that I've been mentioning so many times, almost like beating a dead horse there. And here's another example of it in a play where absolutely this should have been on a VAR and should have checked on it. And I think if they would have gone to VAR, they probably would have overturned it and give a penalty for the Columbus crew. But instead, no call was given. Jackson then had a shot that was deflected and goes right to Tarbell before Amundsen puts it wide from long range in the 78th minute. The shots were now 10-3 in favor of Columbus. But the last shot of the game, see Herrera heads it high from close, and that was the final action of this game as it ends in a scoreless draw between both of these teams. Columbus just couldn't quite solve the compact defense the Dynamo put throughout this game. And the shots in this one, 12 shots created, just 3 that the Dynamo has had. 1 shots on goal per to 5 that Columbus had. 6 shots off target per to 1 that the Dynamo has. Both teams had 1 shot that was blocked, and possession-wise, 62% possession compared to the 38% possession the Dynamo has in this game. And there's no doubt that, if you're Columbus, again, those high-end talent that they lost this off season, it is definitely evident that in this beginning part of the season. And while some of these depth pieces has kind of stepped up for Wilfred Nancy's side, you just kind of had a sense that losing those high end talent has really took this team a step back, and we'll see whether or not if they can replace it, especially maybe in the summer transfer window when that maybe be the time when they're really gonna go big game hunting in terms of replacing the likes of Cucho and Christian Ramirez on this team. But for the Houston Dynamo and for Ben Olsen team, I mean, they'll be happy with this result, especially after that 4-1 drumming that they took at home, and especially of how poor they've been defensively in the first 2 games. The fact that they were able to keep one of the more tougher team to not score a single goal at home. And again, I know this is not the same crew attack as we see in previous year, but knowing that this Dynamo team has been gifting goals left and right, and the fact that they didn't make those mistakes in this game and kept the compact, that's definitely definitely a step in the right direction for this Dynamo team. That again, in these beginning part of the season, it feels like they're really nursing it until maybe till the summer transfer window when they do make those signings. Because again, when you look at this team, it just feels like this is a very incomplete roster, and they're gonna hope to try to nurse their way into the summer transfer window and still be in the competitive stage. Now, moving on into the game that I did not see this one being a 7 goal thriller between the Sounders and LAFC. I mean, coming into this game, knowing that these are 2 of the best defensive teams in the past 4 years, nobody would have thought that this game would have ended 5-2. Though I will say this, most of the goal did came in the last 15 minutes of this game, where defense was pretty much optional in the last 15 minutes of this game. For the most part, it was a pretty tight game at time, and even though this was a game between 2 teams with a very rotated squad, it was still relatively tight at times. And then again, the last 14 minutes basically turned into a bit of a goal fest. Now, in the first half, as I mentioned, it's a very rotated squad for both of these teams, knowing that both of them have a big CONCACAF Champions Cup in the second leg. Well, mostly for the Seattle Sounders, that is. I mean, for LAFC, it was kind of interesting that Steve Cherundolo decided to rest his guys, even though it feels like they're all but done in terms of moving on into the next round. Though I'm pretty sure Steve Cherundolo probably saw what happened to New England a couple of years ago when they they had a 3-0 lead against Pumas, and then in the second leg they choked that 3-0 lead away on the road. So I guess maybe this is just kind of precaution that they're still going to start their strongest team and decide to rest guys in this one. And I think he probably think that knowing that the Sounders are also going to rest their guys, maybe he can get away with resting his guy as well and still maybe get something out of this game. But that being said, early on into this game, I thought LAFC had turnover issue. Like they were turning the ball away way too much in their own half and not really getting any possession on the opposition. This is not nothing new for LAFC. This has been a problem for this team in the beginning of the season. They've always tends to get off to a slow start, but thankfully for them, the Sounders just couldn't quite capitalize on it because they didn't have a certain number 9 on this team to really capitalizing on the mistake that made a big impact for the Sounders team late in this game. So that being said, in the ninth minute, Hassal would tip De La Vega across away, so Thomas Hassal getting his first start for LAFC, at least in league play that is. Something tells me this might be one of his last starts for LAFC. Yeah, this was a rough game for Thomas Hassal. And some of the goals that he conceded, I'm not gonna say all of them is gonna be on him, but some of them, yeah, he probably should have done better. And if Lloris was in goal, probably those one would have been saved. Though that being said, in the 11th minute, this is one that he probably couldn't do anything about it. But Costa Enze would score his first career MLS goal from Fiera to make it 1-0 in favor of the Sounders. So for him, what a landmark moment in, and he was only on a short term loan with Tacoma Defiance as well. It's very rare you see an MLS next player go on a short term loan with a senior squad and able to score a goal there, but that's exactly what happened here. And really, it's also the first open play goal that LAFC have conceded this year as well. Coming into this game, LAFC have not conceded a goal in all competition in 300 plus minutes. So yeah, it kind of makes sense the fact that they would concede 5 after that, and it basically snowball from then on. But that being said, it was all Sounders early in this one. LAFC was just getting pinned deep and keep giving the ball away in their own half, as we usually see them in the beginning of the game. Ordaz then had a shot that was deflected and goes wide. I thought LAFC did start to get into this game with the transition as well, though that being said, around the 26-minute mark, this is something you do not want to see if you're a Sounders fan, or even as an MLS fans as well, to see Pedro de la Vega once again go down with an injury. I mean, he just cannot catch a break right now when it comes to the injury bug. He's now reaching the level of Alexandro Pato level of injury crisis right now with the amount of injuries that he have suffered. Now, from what for it doesn't look like it's a serious injury. You know, with the way that originally when I thought that it was a non-contact injury, you just hope it's not a certain A injury that he suffered. But later on, I think Taylor 12 mentioned the Sounders are looking more toward his quad rather than his knee. So looks like maybe it's not the A injury that I'm pretty sure Sounders fans were really fearing about De La Vega after he was subbed off for Rusnak in this game, because yeah, this is something that, I mean, we knew that when the Sounders bought him and his injury problem in the beginning of his career was going to be a factor, but man, oh man, this he just simply cannot stay healthy. Like just as you thought that maybe this is finally the time to do so, especially in the beginning of the year when there was a lot of Sounders staff had mentioned the fact that this is probably the most healthiest that Pedro de la Vega has had in his entire career, and then this happened. And let's just hope that it's not a serious knee injury, and he should be back with this team relatively soon. But that being said, in the 36th minute, LAFC would tie the game up as Nathan Ordaz, he's been scoring goals for this LAFC team in bunches early in the season, and he scored here again to tie the game up at one apiece. And it kind of felt like it was a smash and grab for LAFC. I even said it here because they haven't really done much going forward up to this point, and it was just one of those one where the ball was pinball into the box and the Sounders couldn't clear the ball away. So yeah, a classic example of when you're leaving the ball in the box and you don't clear the ball away, you are gonna get punished 99 out of 100 time, and the Sounders got punished because of that. The game was tied up at one apiece, and that would also be the score line heading into the second half. So that's got to be very frustrating if you're Brian Schmidt's team, because they pretty much dominated the first half, and yet we'd head to halftime with the score tied up at one apiece. In the second half, Reagan had a free header there, and actually have an empty net there too as well, but kind of the header completely wrong. Like majority of the first half, the Sounders was having all the possession. LAFC was just kind of happy to sit back. Rusnak then had a free kick that was deflected off the wall and out. But then in the 58th minute, Paul Rothrock would score a goal, the weak contention from Rusnak to give the Sounders a 2-1 lead. Now, one thing I will say about this goal is that, they did kind of look at VAR to see whether or not Ifira was impeded on this shot. And I gotta say, this goal really kind of reminds me of what happened in the middle of the week in the Miami and Cavalier game, where that goal was called off because of it. And I feel like this is another one of those where I mentioned before with the way that you don't have to touch the ball and you're in offside side position when the ball is traveling directly toward you, that led to a goal, as long as you're in the vicinity in terms of it and it maybe impede the goalkeeper, then they're always going to call offside on that. And I guess, again, in this moment they didn't call offside on it. I think maybe they think that one, either Ferreira didn't impede that in a way that really caused Hassel to kind of freeze a little bit and kind of getting obstructed with the view, but also maybe he was just in an onside position, because on a couple of looks I feel like it was very, very close of him being on an onside position, and therefore that's why there that's why the goal, of course, was given. Either way, again, this kind of calls has really started to remind me of the handball rule. I mean, there's been a long time we always say, what is a handball in this league, and what is a handball in this sports in general, because it's so hard, so loosely interpreted, not only in MLS but pretty much in the world of football as well. And I feel like we're heading to that direction with these kind of calls again, where whether if a player is impeding the goalkeeper, even though he's in an offside position, and sometimes they say that it was, and sometimes it isn't. Though in the 63rd minute, Marlon had to be subbed off with a knee injury as Martinez was subbed in. So yeah, tough break there for Marlon. And what's even more tougher is that it feels like this injury looks more serious than the De La Vega situation. He really had a tough time trying to get off the field, and again, you just hope it's not an a injury, but yeah, he had to be subbed off here, and that was pretty much it for the LAFC defense, because the LAFC defense was never the same after this moment. Rusnak would puts it right to Hassel in the 68th minute, and with a reshaped back line for LAFC, they look very shaky at the back, and that's just saying it lightly. I mean, this LAFC defense simply just collapsed after the Marlon injury. Rusnak would then hits one right to Hassel again in the 71st minute. The Sounders are looking to put this away. But again, this is something very similar to what we saw in the last home league game against Charlotte. Not able to get that 2-goal lead. Is not going to come back to haunt them. Well, Rothrock tried to change that, but he hits one that actually was spilled by Hassel, but was not punished and was gathered on the second attempt. But then in the 76th minute, the Sounders would get that killer third goal in that 2-goal lead, and it's a historic one too, because Jordan Morris, coming into this game, he was tied with Rui Diaz as the all-time goal scorer for the Seattle Sounders. He's now the all-time goal scorer for the Seattle Sounders after this goal. He scored from Rothrock and Rodon to make it 3-1 in favor of the Sounders. So Rothrock, a great day for him. He was definitely a monster in the attack throughout this game. And like I said, a historic goal there from Jordan Morris. Congratulations of him being the all-time Sounders goal scored with his 87 for the Sounders up to this mark. Bawanga looked to respond, but he hits it right to Thomas. And then in the 84th minute, it would be 4-1 in favor of the Sounders, as Christian Rodon would score from Rusnak and Bell to make it 4-1 in favor of the Sounders. Hassel then denied Morris from close. LAFC defense pretty much basically vanished since the Marlon injury. I mean, it was non-existent. But you know what else is non-existent? Defense in this one, because after Manungu puts it wide from close range in the first minute of stoppage time, LAFC would get one back as David Martinez would open his goal scoring account in this one. And this is kind of a move that we're going to expect from David Martinez. He is just such a great player when he's on the ball there. He basically went beast mode there, took on the entire Sounders defense. Now, you could question that Sounders defense probably should have done better in terms of slowing him down, but take nothing away from David Martinez doing his best Lionel Messi impression here with a solo effort to make it 4-2 in favor of the Sounders. Hassel then denied Rothrock from close range, but then in the 5th minute, Albert Rusnak would join the goal scoring party. He scored from Manungu to make it 5-2 in this game. is defending in this game. I mean, Shirley was nowhere to be found ever since the third goal was scored by the Sounders. And then it looked like it was almost 6-2 when Rusnak were looking for another, but he hits it right to Hassel in the 6 minute of stoppage time. But yeah, in the end, 5-2 is the final scoreline of this game. It's been a while since the Seattle Sounders have scored 5 goals at home. I mean, the last time I think they scored five goals. I mean, I remember during the COVID year there was one game where they scored 7 past the Quakes, but it's been a while since they scored that many goals at home, and especially when if you would have told me that this team would score 5 goals against this LAFC backline that hasn't conceded a single goal going back to the Colorado game, which is their first game of the season, and this is even with the backup there, I would have not believed you whatsoever. But that's why we love this league. That's why we love the unpredictability that this league throw at some time. But in the end, the result itself was not really unpredictable. This was a well deserved win for the Sounders in this one. And the shots in this one, 15 shots compared to 7 that LAFC had, 4 shots on goal compared to 12 that the Sounders had. Yeah, 12 shots on goal for the Sounders. They were definitely peppering a sell in this one. Both teams had 1 shots off target, 4 shots that was blocked for the 3 that LAFC had, and possession wise, 57% possession compared to the 43% possession that LAFC has in this game. And for LAFC, I know it's going to be easy to overreact, especially I'm pretty sure LAFC fans will overreact in terms of how bad the defense has been played. But remember, this is still kind of a makeshift tagline, and this is not the strongest team that LAFC starred. I think if they do play their strongest team, they're not going to have these kind of performance. But still, there are definitely still some concern, especially the Marlon injury as well. If he's going to be out for a long period of time, I mean, they do have some option at the back, but that's a big piece that they lost because he really come to himself in last season, especially with Steve Carino really want to play at a free at the back kind of system. Losing Marlon is gonna really damper for that, and that they'll really need to try to maybe reshape that the defense heading into the next game. And I think that's also kind of why the defense kind of fall apart, because it's just not just one important defensive player that kind of came out that caused the collapse this LAFC defense. It's just simply them changing to a different shape that this backline is not familiar this season. And yeah, next thing you know, no, they get completely cut open, and yeah, that's exactly the kind of one of the big reasons why they conceded 5, and especially 4 goals, or at least 3 goals in the last 15 minutes to the Sounders in this one. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at both of these games and both of these early games, that is. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these matinee games. Of course, most likely I'm not going to be back home very late tonight because going down to PayPal to watch that Blues Not Derby. So most likely I'm going to do the review of the Saturday night game, and I might just do a full review, just do like 10 games at a time, and just look at the last 2 of the review for match week number 3 once those games concluded on Sunday. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.